Hello everybody, welcome to another video tutorial by Vivio Technologies. Today we're going to be going over setting up DNS on a Windows server using the DNS server role. If you already have that role installed on the server, then you can skip ahead through the video a little bit. We are going to be walking through installing that role for those that do not have it installed. If you are not sure if you had it installed or not, you can click on the Windows Start button, then click on Windows Administrative Tools, and then in the list of Windows Administrative Tools, if you do not see DNS as an option here, then you probably do not have it installed. If you do, then you can skip ahead. To install the DNS server role, click on the Start button and then click on Server Manager. Once the Server Manager comes up, you will need to click on the Manage button. I'll hide my video real quick so you can see that button real quick. Click on the Manage button and then Add Roles and Features. Once that wizard pops up, click on the Next button on the Before You Begin page, and then on the installation type, make sure you choose role-based or feature-based installation. That should be the default selection, but just in case, make sure that's selected, then click Next. On the server selection, make sure your server is selected. It's probably the only server in the pool, so you should be able to just click Next. On the server roles, make sure you select the DNS server option. Once you select that, you will notice a prompt for adding all the features that's related to the DNS server. This is required for DNS server to function properly, so make sure you click on Add Features. And then once done, click on Next. Now, since we just installed those, since we just selected those features in the last prompt, we don't need to do anything on this features page, so you can click Next. And then on the DNS server page, just giving you some information related to DNS. If you want, you can read that, and then once done, click Next. On the confirmation page, it's asking you if you want to restart the server if it's required. This feature does not require any server restart, so you can ignore that option. You just click on the install button here, and you will have to wait a few minutes, most likely, for it to finish installing. Typically it'll finish usually in 1 or 2 minutes. Alright, so I went ahead and skipped ahead, took about 1 or 2 minutes for that to finish. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this installation wizard and server manager since we are done in there. Now that we have the DNS manager installed, you can access that through the start menu and then click on Windows Administrative Tools. That DNS option is now listed there. If you double click on that or right click and open, then it'll open up the DNS manager, and you can see that right now we don't have any zones. If it doesn't come to this page automatically, just expand the server node and then click on Forward Lookup Zones. So we don't have any zones currently, and we're going to go ahead and create our first zone. The way you do that is you right click on Forward Lookup Zones and then click on New Zone. Now the New Zone wizard should appear, and you can click the Next button, and we already have primary zone selected. That is what we want. We want to create a primary DNS zone, so go ahead and click on the Next button, and then you should enter the zone name, which will be the domain name in question that you want to add the DNS zone for. So for our video, we're just going to do example.com and then click Next, and then you will click Next, and one more time, Next. Now you will click on Finish, and that will create the DNS zone for your domain. In our case, example.com is listed here. If you expand the folder for forward lookup zones, you can see that in there now as well. So you can either click that or click on the example.com here, and it will show you the resource records associated with this zone. Before we dive into the resource records, we're not yet finished with the configuration for the DNS zone. And what you want to do is right click on the zone and choose Properties. So we're going to click on the name servers tab, and the reason for this is we want to set the name servers for this zone to be ns1.viviotech.net and ns2.viviotech.net, so that way whenever your domain's when your domain is pointing to ns1 and ns2.viviotech.net, our name servers are able to query or respond to your DNS queries and give the answers for the A records, CNAME records, MX records, etc., based on what you have set on your server. Without doing this, our DNS servers will not be able to create a slave to your server for the DNS zone. So you want to remove this first option here for the name server. It should default to your server name. Just remove that and then click on add, and then type your ns1.viviotech.net and then click resolve. That will give you an error for the validation that the server with this IP address is not authoritative. That is okay. You can just click on OK and then click add again and do the same thing for the second name server. So ns2.viviotech.net, click resolve, OK, and then you see them both there. Click apply to save the changes and then click OK, and you will notice that our DNS zone, the resource records are showing our updated ns1 and ns2.viviotech.net now. That is expected, and it looks good. So now that we have the domain set up, you can add your resource records, but before you do, I just wanted to make a quick note that in order for this to work, before pointing your domain to ns1 and ns2, you will need to create a ticket with our support team at support@viviotech.net and ask us to create the domain on our ns1 and ns2 name servers. And what we'll do is we'll create that domain on our name servers that slaves to this DNS zone on your server. So any changes you ever make here in your server for the DNS zone will automatically be applied to our name servers ns1 and ns2. Alright, so let's go ahead and create some resource records. The resource record options listed when you right click anywhere in the resource records fields here. You have some set options here for A records, CNAME, MX. Those are the most common that people select, so they make them pretty easy for you to choose. You can click on the A record, for example, and then type an IP address that you want your domain to resolve to. You could type a subdomain here, so we put test.example.com. Otherwise, if you leave it blank, it will be for the root of the domain. Click add host when you're ready, and you should get a success prompt here. So close out of that, and you can see that the record that I added was added successfully. So that is great. You can select that record anytime you ever want to update it, and then click properties after right clicking, and you can make your changes as necessary. Click apply and then OK, and that will save your changes. But what about other resource records? So I mentioned you can do A record, CNAME, MX. For other type of records, there is an option here for other new records, and if you click on that, it will give you a huge list of different records you can choose from. And one of the most common records that people have asked about that they couldn't find, it's very easy to overlook because it's all the way at the bottom, and that is a text record. The text record is very common in DNS for mail purposes, so for like SPF, DKIM, DMARC, things like that. You can also use it for SSL validation, domain validation stuff. But yeah, you can create your record here. Just click create record, enter that information. So you can put your SPF record here. Again, it works the same way as the A record, so you can put test here. So that way it's test.example.com, where you can leave it blank for the root, and then click OK when you're done. Alright, that is all for the creating and managing the DNS zone, but I'll leave you with one extra helpful tip to try to help prevent your server from getting attacked with DNS request. You can come in here and right click on your server node and click on properties and then click on advanced and check the box for disable recursion. There's a lot of attackers out there that try to attack people based on them having recursion enabled in their DNS service, and it overwhelms the server and the network. So if you leave that enabled, which it's enabled by default, then your server could be subject to those attacks. So I just wanted to mention that. And if you have any questions or it's not working quite as expected, feel free to reach out to us at support@viviotech.net, and we will be happy to assist.